an interesting subject is evolution and creation. And I heard about, people believe in evolution, and I mean, they got the right to believe whatever they want. I don't personally believe that come from the ocean, and I don't believe that, you see, in order to, everyone heard about carbon dating, and I think there's a lot of money in carbon dating, and when people talk about, this humans were discovered 10,000 years ago, and to me it's just one of those things that how can you disprove that? How can you say, well, it isn't true? Is there a way or not? So these so-called scientists, they want to disprove creation, so they will do anything to disprove creation. They will have their own commission, they will have their own people, and so wherever we can't say anything against what they say, right? So when they talk, for example, when they talk about millions of years, like civilization, came about 3,000, 4,000 years ago. 300 millions or 400 millions ago. And then you think to yourself, how can you calculate that? How can you come up with that number? When people come along and say, well, there's ways you can calculate. But how on earth can a human being, we barely live 100 years if we're lucky. Or maybe not lucky. Depends how you look at it. And we don't really know much about history. You can go as far as maybe 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Like you got before Egypt, the Bible goes all the way back to Egypt. And after that, it goes back to Adam and Eve. Like, how far can you go back? You see, Adam and Eve will be the creation. And then after that, you see how the different tribes were created and things like this, right? But and then there's also the thing, how did colors came to the world, right? I mean, this is another thing that this is another conversation, right? How do you have black people? How do you have Chinese? How do you have all sorts of different But in terms of colors, how do you have black people and you got white people? And you also have it's really interesting because that's how far you can go back. Adam and Eve. But then, when they talk about millions of years, this one thing I'm trying to understand is like, this is like that is just, it's like they drop numbers. I was having this conversation with a guy, and he said to me that, when the Earth was created, and he told me 7 point something billion years ago, like, and I said to him, do you actually believe that, mate? I said, do you believe that a human being will know when everything was created? Do you know that 7 something billion years ago, God, were you there? How on earth can you go back in time and sort of calculate that this is when the Earth was created and there's a few seconds missing, and that this is all nonsense. Like, we are being lied by these people about they know the creation, they know all this, they know when and that's why they always tell you this numbers. They always come up with 400 million, 500 million, 1 billion, because there's no way your mind can understand this. There's no way you can calculate this. I mean, how on earth can a human being calculate 1 million years? There's another thing I realized. It's all related. Distance from here to the sun. Something about between 200 and 300 million years away. Like, they make you believe that you're so small, you just happen to be, you're just a random thing that happens, and you came from a tiny insect that happens to be, is this guy gonna live in? That happens to be in the ocean, and this bacteria, whatever this is, you came from that, and then from bacteria you evolve into monkeys, and then you came to, this is just, I found it funny, right? How so many civilizations speak about giants, for example. But giant. This book about like the creature that is in the oceans, the what's it? It's like it looks like a sort of like a big crocodile, but it's like it's mentioned in the Bible, and it also speaks about other sort of creatures. But this is and yet they've never found bones, or they did find bones of giants, of human giants. Giants just told us 5 meters or 6 meters. There's a story actually in Afghanistan, and it talks about the giant of Kandahar, and apparently a SEAL team were patrolling in the mountains, and they went in this cave to fight the Taliban, as we see, and they came across this the first team apparently was killed because a red-headed giant came out, and it says they opened fire, and so the first team was sort of killed, and then they had to send another team, and the second team took him down. But when they took him down, upon inspection, one of the guys there, whistleblower, said that this sort of creature or man, or it says he had 6 fingers and 6 and toes. So in each, instead of having 5, he had 5 fingers. He had 6 fingers instead of 5. He had 6, and on toes, instead of 5 toes, he had 6 on each. So instead of having 20 in total, like 10 fingers and 10 toes, he had 24. So, and I heard this before, where if you know the story between David and Goliath in the Bible, if I'm not wrong, he had 6 fingers, and he was described as a giant man. I think sometimes pictures and the way historians portray Goliath, they don't really give him enough praise for how tall it was and how strong it was, so, but if you look at the beginning of the 20th century in ISIS, when they start building all sorts of different things, the Native Americans had stories about giants. They knew that giants existed. But where do I want to come up with this? So you have all these giants, you have all this that are mentioned everywhere in civilizations, in different civilizations, and yet the mainstream scientists have never sort of found any bones or anything like that, and they never talk about them, right? But dinosaurs are found everywhere, absolutely everywhere. No one talks about dinosaurs. No civilization talks about dinosaurs. They talk about big creatures, indeed, yes, but it's like they talk about one big in the ocean, one big on the surface, like a massive dragon or something like that, like a massive fly, or I don't know, things like this, you see. But they never speak about there were so many dinosaurs and they were just looking like that. And this doesn't make sense. So to me, when they speak about dinosaurs, in every museum you go in this world, Europe, wherever you name it, in this every continent, you see museums with dinosaur bones, but yet you never find any other, you never find about giants. So this is they're trying to take you away from the actual, from the actual truth, you see. And that's why there's a lot about evolution. There's a lot about doesn't make any sense. I don't believe that I come from monkeys. Doesn't make any sense. You have to be a creation. It doesn't make any sense that. And how can you know? You're just a normal human. How can you go back in time? Whatever machine you have, whatever equipment you have, you think these are just theories. How can you actually sit down with a bunch of people and decide, you know what? I believe that this lot of time ago, that's how people came. They came from monkeys, or they came from Homo, I don't know what. I mean, it's impossible to make these assumptions, because you barely know, it's really, you barely know how how cells work in your body, and why do you age and why do you die. You can never explain this question. You can never explain this. You know, no one on this planet knows why do we die. They can come up with things like, oh, this and that. They will never understand. It had to be some sort of a limit put by something or someone. Again, a creator, or it must have been something that put a limit on our existence, on our lifespan. You know, it's just there's so much. You know, it's very interesting because you don't have. You know, when they say, "Do you believe in God, or do you think God is alive or the creator?" It's just there. You know, like it just everywhere you look, it's just pure proof that creation is real. You know. I mean, look at everything that we wear, everything that we, you know, the cars that we drive, everything that we have is absolutely just, we created all this. So what makes you think that like trees and all that were not the same? You know what I mean? Like, this is just, it's like the creator created the trees and the landscape and everything. We come along and we create the houses and we create the cars and everything. So this is a very, you know, I'm going to start talking about this because this is a really interesting subject. I've always been interested in my whole life. I'm going to make another video about why most people don't believe in God, or why they do not have, in the world we live in, not many people believe in God, or just in creation in general, because God has been used, the word God has been used too many times, and I feel like it's taken away that powerful meaning, you see. So I'm gonna make another video now. Let me just go after this roundabout. Perfect.